Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In today's episode, we're about to share some true, spine-chilling horror stories, the kind that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. But before we dive into tonight's terrifying tales, make sure to hit that like button, and if you've ever experienced something truly unnerving, we'd love to hear your story. Feel free to reach out and share your experience with us. Now, imagine this. You're completely alone in a place where no one can hear you, when suddenly something unexplainable happened, something that defies all logic. What if I told you this is a true story? Tonight, we'll unravel a chilling mystery that has left experts baffled and those who lived through it forever haunted. A real-life event where the line between the paranormal and reality blurs in a way that you have to see to believe. So, dim the lights, settle in, and get ready to discover the truth behind one of the most terrifying stories you've never heard. Alaska, a land of beauty, mystery, and terror. A place where the untamed wilderness hides secrets that man may never understand. In the winter of 1950, one family embarked on a journey through this vast, frozen land. A journey that would lead them to a fate unknown. This is the haunting tale of the Vildozo family. A family who disappeared without a trace, leaving only a chilling mystery behind them. The Vildozo family, John and Marie, and their two children, Michael and Sarah, were just like any other family. The couple in their early 30s had decided to take a road trip through Alaska's wilderness in the winter of 1950. They wanted an adventure, a chance to explore the last frontiers of the United States. Little did they know, that decision would lead to a series of events that no one could have predicted. Alaska, during the winter months, is a harsh and unforgiving place. The temperature often drops to bone-chilling levels, and the roads become treacherous. The remote regions are so vast and isolated that one can drive for miles without seeing another soul. It's a land where the unknown can quickly consume you. The family set off from Anchorage, planning to take in the beautiful sights of the Alaskan countryside. But their journey took a tragic turn when on December 12th, their car broke down on a desolate stretch of highway near the Denali National Park, miles from the nearest town. Days passed, and when the Vildozo family failed to check in, concerned relatives alerted authorities. A search team was sent out. What they found was baffling. The family's car, parked in the middle of the road, appeared untouched. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, nothing that indicated they had been forced to abandon their vehicle. But the truly eerie part was this. There were no footprints leading away from the car. No sign that anyone had walked away. It was as if the family had simply vanished into the cold, empty air, leaving behind only their vehicle. As authorities scoured the area, they reported hearing strange sounds in the distance. Whispers on the wind that seemed to carry a faint, unintelligible language. Searchers felt as if something or someone was watching them. But each time they approached the sounds, they ceased. Was it the wind playing tricks on their minds? Or was something else out there in the wilderness, watching from the shadows? Over the years, many theories have emerged to explain the disappearance of the Vildozo family. Some have suggested that the family might have gotten lost in the wilderness, too disoriented to find their way back. But that theory doesn't explain why they left no trace. Why would a family of 4 walk off into the frozen wilderness without leaving any footprints in the snow? Something just doesn't add up. Others believe something far more sinister was at play. Could it have been the work of a cryptid? A creature lurking in the forests of Alaska, preying on those who wander too far from civilization? Some locals whispered about sightings of strange, monstrous creatures that roamed the Alaskan wilderness, hidden from the eyes of most. Creatures that could easily hunt down a family and leave no trace behind. In Alaska, tales of creatures like the Wendigo, a malevolent flesh-eating spirit, are well known. Some believe the Vildozo family encountered such a creature in the depths of the forest, and that it took them, dragging them into the darkness. There are also those who believe that something far older and darker might have been at work. Something supernatural. The land of Alaska, rich with history and old Native American lore, is steeped in tales of spirits and dark forces. Some believe that the family's car was not just an abandoned vehicle, but a trap, a doorway to a realm beyond our understanding. Some speculate that the Vildozo family might have inadvertently stumbled upon an ancient curse, one that claimed their lives in a way we cannot comprehend. Perhaps the land itself is alive with energy, a force that protects its secrets by taking those who get too close. To this day, the Vildozo family's disappearance remains one of the most chilling mysteries in Alaskan history. Despite repeated searches over the years, no trace of the family has ever been found, and the case remains open. But perhaps the most unsettling part of this mystery is the fact that it isn't unique. Over the years, there have been countless reports of strange disappearances in the Alaskan wilderness. People who go missing without a trace, as if swallowed by the land itself. Some say the Vildozo family is still out there, waiting, their spirits trapped somewhere between this world and the next. Whispers of their disappearance continue to echo across the wilderness, and those who venture too deep into the forest say they can still hear them, calling, beckoning. The question remains, what happened to the Vildozo family? Were they victims of the unforgiving wilderness, or did something darker, more terrifying, claim their lives? Whatever the answer may be, their story continues to haunt the frozen expanse of Alaska, waiting for someone to uncover the truth. What do you believe happened to the Vildozo family? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. This is the story of the McCarthy murders and the Wrangell mountain ghosts of Alaska, one that continues to intrigue and terrify those who hear it. It blends real historical events with the chilling unknown, creating a haunting tale that lingers long after it's told. In the remote reaches of Alaska, nestled among the towering peaks of the Wrangell Mountains, lies the small, secluded town of McCarthy. This tiny community, which has a population of fewer than 30 people, is known for its rich history rooted in mining, isolation, and strange, unsettling occurrences. McCarthy was once a bustling center during the height of the Kennecott copper mines operations in the early 20th century. However, after the mine closed in the 1930s, the town was abandoned, and it remained largely uninhabited for decades, save for a few intrepid souls who lived off the land. It is in this isolated place, far from civilization, that one of Alaska's most chilling and unexplained murders took place, an event that many claim to be linked to a haunting spirit roaming the mountains, and the unanswered question of why McCarthy remains so eerily silent. The murders, the case of the 4 hikers. In 1990, 4 young hikers, 2 couples from Washington state, made the fateful decision to venture into the Wrangell Mountains for what was supposed to be a peaceful wilderness trip. They were experienced hikers, well prepared for the harsh and remote terrain, but their adventure took a dark and tragic turn when they vanished without a trace. The group, comprised of 2 men and 2 women, was last seen in McCarthy before heading out toward the rugged wilderness to explore the foothills of the mountain range. Over the course of several weeks, they failed to check in, causing concern among their families and friends. After a formal search effort by local authorities, it was clear that something had gone horribly wrong. The search parties discovered signs of struggle, personal items scattered about, and signs of what seemed to be a violent altercation. Then, in the dense forest near the foot of a glacier, investigators stumbled upon a grisly scene that only deepened the mystery. The bodies of all 4 hikers were found in a clearing, their bodies mutilated in strange ways. It wasn't the typical work of wild animals. There were no tracks in the snow, indicating any large predator had been involved. Moreover, the hikers' injuries suggested a more human hand at work. Each of the bodies had been deliberately staged in unnatural positions, their eyes wide open, gazing upward toward the sky as though they had been forced to look at something terrifying in their final moments. What truly disturbed investigators were the reports of eerie phenomena from the few people living in the surrounding areas at the time. Some locals spoke of strange, ghostly figures being seen at night in the mountains, walking in the same places where the hikers had last been. Others reported hearing eerie sounds, like unearthly cries, echoing down the valleys of the mountains. These reports were dismissed as folklore until the hikers' bodies were discovered, and the strange happenings started to gain more attention. Despite numerous theories and intense investigation, the case was never solved. No one could determine the identity of the murderer or the motive. Some speculated that the killings might have been the work of a drifter or someone with a personal vendetta against the group, but no suspects ever emerged. The incident was filed away as a cold case, with no answers to the many questions it raised. With the gruesome murders still unsolved, and the case growing colder by the year, an eerie pattern began to emerge among locals in McCarthy and nearby areas. The small community, which had seen its fair share of supernatural tales over the years, began to report strange, unexplainable events in the wake of the hikers' deaths. It is said that the spirits of the murdered hikers never left the Wrangell Mountains, and their restless souls still roam the hills to this day. A recurring theme among locals was the sense of being watched while traveling through the mountains. Several individuals reported feeling an overwhelming sense of dread while hiking near the site where the bodies were found. They would hear footsteps behind them, even though no one was there. Others reported that their campsites would be disturbed overnight, gear and supplies mysteriously moved, items knocked over, and strange marks found in the snow as if someone or something had been near their tents. The most disturbing part was that many of the people who reported these experiences claimed they could hear distant voices calling their names, or, in some cases, the cries of the 4 murdered hikers. One particularly terrifying account comes from a young woman named Ellen, who visited McCarthy in 1995 to research the area for a book she was writing about Alaska's wilderness. While staying at a cabin near the edge of the Wrangell Mountains, Ellen heard what she described as agonizing wails that echoed through the forest one night. At first, she believed it was the wind or perhaps some animal. But when the sounds grew louder and more human, she felt compelled to investigate. With a flashlight in hand, Ellen ventured into the woods, her heart pounding with fear. As she trekked farther into the dark, she began to feel an overwhelming presence, as if something or someone was watching her every move. The air became thick with an oppressive, unnatural coldness. She stumbled upon the remnants of a campsite, old, weathered gear, and the faint remnants of a fire. But it wasn't the campsite that caught her attention. It was the unmistakable sensation that she was not alone. Ellen turned around and swore she saw shadowy figures moving just beyond her flashlight's beam. Suddenly, the hairs on the back of her neck stood on end, and she felt a sharp, icy gust of wind whip past her, followed by a whispering voice calling her name. Terrified, she turned and ran back toward the cabin, but the feeling of being pursued stayed with her for hours after she returned to safety. Over the following days, Ellen found it nearly impossible to sleep, and the dread she felt never fully left her. She left McCarthy earlier than planned and later documented her experience in a popular outdoor magazine. Though many dismissed her encounter as mere hallucinations or the effects of exhaustion in the wild. But for those who had been in McCarthy for long enough, Ellen's experience was just another chapter in a long history of eerie happenings in the area. As time passed, McCarthy remained a town haunted, not just by the memories of those who had lived and died there, but by something far more sinister, something that seemed tied to the very mountains themselves. Those who visited the area after the hikers' deaths spoke of an inescapable sense of isolation, a place where time seemed to stop, and where the mountains loomed like silent sentinels, watching, waiting. Rumors of a curse began to circulate. Some believed the ghosts of the hikers were seeking revenge for their untimely deaths, while others thought something darker and far older resided in the mountains. An ancient spirit or force that fed off the fear of those who ventured too far into its domain. A few old-timers even whispered about the restless souls of past miners and settlers, who had also met untimely ends in the unforgiving wilderness. Their spirits now intertwined with the spirits of the murdered hikers. The McCarthy murders remain one of Alaska's most enduring unsolved mysteries. The town itself, once a thriving community, is now just a shadow of its former self. Yet, the ghostly whispers of its past continue to haunt the minds of those who venture near. To this day, the site where the 4 hikers perished remains a focal point for paranormal enthusiasts, and many claim to feel the eerie presence of something watching from the distance. Alaska's Wrangell Mountains, with their snow-capped peaks and endless valleys, hold more than just the beauty of nature. They hold a dark, twisted history of death and loss, one that might never be fully understood, but will forever leave its mark on anyone who dares to enter. Alaska, a vast, untamed wilderness where the line between reality and the unknown often blurs. In a land filled with towering mountains, dense forests, and icy waters, there are tales that should never be told. A story from a place so remote, so isolated, it feels like the world itself has forgotten it. Deadman's Cove, a small inlet on the southeastern coast of Alaska where a strange encounter left one man changed forever. It was the summer of 2005 when Jack Turner, a seasoned fisherman, set out to explore a little-known cove along the Alaskan coastline. He was alone, as he often was, seeking peace away from the bustle of everyday life. His boat glided through the fog as the shoreline disappeared behind him. But Jack had no idea what was waiting ahead, at Deadman's Cove. Jack had heard rumors of the place. Strange whispers from other fishermen. Some said the cove was cursed. Others swore it was haunted by the spirits of long-lost sailors who met their fate in the frigid waters. But Jack, a man of logic and experience, brushed it off as superstition. After all, it was just another patch of sea, or so he thought. As Jack approached the cove, the air grew thick with an unnatural stillness. The water was eerily calm, as if holding its breath. Then, without warning, the engine of his boat sputtered and died. Jack cursed under his breath, glancing at the shoreline. There was no other boat in sight, just the black rocks and twisted trees. He tried restarting the engine, but it refused to budge. It was as if something didn't want him there. But as he fumbled with the controls, that's when he first heard it. Soft at first, like a faint murmur in the wind. Voices, whispering in the distance. Jack shook his head. Maybe it was the isolation, the silence playing tricks on him. But the whispering, it felt different. It felt real. After several attempts, Jack decided to row toward the shore, hoping to find help. But as he neared the rocky beach, his eyes caught something that made his blood run cold. There, half buried in the sand, was a wooden rowboat. Old and weathered, but unmistakably out of place in these waters. Jack's instincts screamed at him to turn back, but curiosity got the better of him. He tied his boat to a nearby rock and stepped onto the shore. The whispers were louder now, echoing in the wind like they were coming from all directions. He couldn't make out the words, but they carried a sense of urgency. And then he saw it. A figure, shrouded in shadow, standing at the edge of the trees. It was just a silhouette at first, but as he blinked, it took shape. A man. A fisherman, or so it seemed. His clothes were ragged, torn by the harsh elements, his skin pale as if the life had been drained from it. His eyes... Jack could see the eyes now, staring back at him, but they were empty. Hollow, like black pits that swallowed all light. Jack stood frozen, staring at the figure. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. But before he could speak, the figure slowly raised a hand. A warning? A gesture to stay away? Jack didn't know, but something deep in his gut told him he had made a terrible mistake. He turned to leave, but the boat was gone. His own boat, the one he had tied to the rock. Panicked now, Jack ran to where he had left it, but there was nothing. Just the empty cove, the whispering wind, and that figure still watching him. And that's when the voice, now unmistakable, called out to him from the shadows. Leave, now. Jack didn't know how long he ran. The fear had taken over, his heart pounding in his chest. He stumbled, tripped over rocks, but kept going. Behind him, the figure seemed to follow. Every time he glanced back, it was closer. Closer and closer, until it was almost upon him. Jack reached the shoreline, his eyes scanning frantically. And then, like some cruel twist of fate, his boat reappeared, drifting back toward him. But this wasn't the same boat. The wood was now warped, the edges frayed like it had been dragged across the sea for years. The figure was gone. The whispers had stopped. The silence returned. Jack made it back to his cabin, but the terror didn't leave him. Not really. Every night, he would wake up, feeling like something was watching him from the shadows. The figure from Deadman's Cove, it had followed him. Some say it was a ghost. Others, a warning, a reminder of those who disappeared in the cursed waters, their souls never finding rest. Jack left Alaska soon after, but the fear stayed with him. He told no one of what happened at Deadman's Cove, except in his nightmares. And for years, he would hear the whispers in the back of his mind warning him to never go back. Some places are forgotten for a reason, and some stories are best left untold. But now you've heard this one, and perhaps you'll think twice before venturing into the remote corners of the world. After all, who knows what still lingers in the shadows of Deadman's Cove? Stay safe out there, and if you ever find yourself in Alaska, don't go looking for things that don't want to be found. If you think Deadman's Cove was the only place in Alaska with dark secrets, think again. There are more stories hidden in the shadows of that frozen wilderness. And who knows, you might even find one closer than you think. So if you're brave enough to hear more, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications before the darkness finds you first.